ESG is not really dying. It, too, is just being relabeled. Of course, we covered diversity, equity, and inclusion being relabeled. It's still going to persist in corporations across the United States, just as affirmative action persists in the education arena. But when we look at ESG, we're starting to see a lot more companies, a lot more banks, big companies out there backing away from ESG, backing away from Net Zero Banking Alliance. This is supposedly great news, but I'm not cheering because I know when they're really making a change and when they're just pretending to make a change. Let's start with this article over at Daily Wire. BlackRock exits climate activist group after pressure from Republicans. There's the key. How do you know when somebody's actually making a change? When I say somebody, I'm talking specifically about leftists, globalists, woke corporations, woke individuals, woke politicians. If they're making a real change, okay, if they're actually going to do something different than what they were doing before, they will attribute it to an evolution, new information. They will thump their chest and they'll say, "We figured it out. We are now switching over to this, and we're making change. We're doing better because of what we've learned, what we did." When they're lying, when they aren't actually going to make a change, when they just want to pretend like they're making a change, they will attribute it to, "Oh, we learned our lesson from those Republicans, though they did such a good job. They were right all along. We should have been listening to them the whole time. Republicans, conservatives, nationalists, oh, they were right. We were wrong. Oh, well." We saw this with the censorship. The Ministry of Truth that popped up, what was it, 2021, 2022? Ministry of Truth started popping up, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, nope, it's not popular. People are getting a lot of backlash. Let's end this." Except they never ended it. They just relabeled it, and then they relabeled it again. Okay, we're about to witness what I believe to be the fourth iteration of the Ministry of Truth. And the funny part is it's the same people involved. They just continue to do the same thing. They just pretend like they took a loss. They took the L because Republicans taught them a lesson. It's basically a way of placating. And this here, BlackRock's move allegedly away from ESG, away from woke investing, they're attributing it to Republican pressure because they're going to continue to do it. But let's get in this article by Leif LeMahieu. What a name. Great name for a writer. BlackRock exits climate activist group after pressure from Republicans. BlackRock announced this week that it was leaving a major climate activist group after Republicans criticized its involvement with the group. The company said in a letter that it would be leaving the Net Zero Asset Management Initiative, an organization of assets managers committed to supporting the goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050 or sooner. At one point, NZAM boasted its members control over $57 trillion in assets. BlackRock's announcement comes after 11 Republican attorneys general, led by Texas AG Ken Paxton, filed a lawsuit in November against the asset managers over its involvement with groups like NZAM. Texas lawsuit accused BlackRock of violating antitrust laws by allegedly engaging in a conspiracy with other asset managers to constrict the market for coal. BlackRock has denied the allegations and said the suit is without merit. BlackRock's letter, first obtained by Bloomberg, acknowledged that its involvement with NZAM, quote, caused confusion regarding BlackRock's practices and subjected us to legal inquiries from various public officials. Our participation in NZAM didn't impact the way we manage client portfolios. Therefore, our departure doesn't change the way we develop products and solutions for clients or how we manage their portfolios. In other words, hey, yeah, you guys are suing us because we're involved in this organization, so we're going to leave the organization. The organization didn't change our practices, so we're not going to change our practices. But you guys win. Republicans win. Good, go team. Good job. You guys nailed us. We're so silly for thinking we could outsmart y'all. Now go sue somebody else. We're out of NZAM. Everything's all back to normal. Notice that they're saying that the practices that their investment practices were not influenced by NZAM, and now that they're leaving NZAM, their practices are going to continue. In other words, they're still going to participate in ESG investing. Now, the funny part is that they are trying to change, they're relabeling even that. Notice you hear much less about ESG. It's really only the right, conservatives or alternative media that ever even mentions ESG anymore. They're now calling it the net zero. Now they're calling it whatever. They're calling it whatever they want to call it, and that name changes from year to year because they don't care about, all they care about is their end goal. They don't care about building harmony. They don't care about the branding aspect of it, is because every time they try to brand something, eventually it gets burned down because their ideas are stupid. Their ideas are ludicrous, and they know it, which is why people like Larry Fink over at BlackRock, he flat out said, look, ESG is getting a bad name, so we're going to have to give it a new name. That's it. They're not changing their practices at all. They're just trying to stifle lawsuits, to quash opposition, to end criticism, to move on to the next variation of the same exact thing. And it's not just BlackRock. It's an article over at, from a couple of days ago, over at thenewamerican.com. ESG continues to crumble. That's what they want us to think. And I'm not saying that the New American is doing a bad job here. They're just, I hate to say it, but they're just falling for the con. ESG continues to crumble. Goldman Sachs leaves UN's net zero banking alliance. Wow, everybody seems to be leaving. Isn't this great? Great work, guys. Go team. Financial industry giant Goldman Sachs has announced it will no longer participate in the UN-backed net zero banking alliance. It is the latest high-profile departure of a financial institution from a global climate alliance in the wake of scrutiny by American lawmakers concerned that banks are attempting to severely limit financial options for fossil fuels, concerns because of climate change. The NZBA, another net zero organization, this time with banks, the NZBA boasts membership of more than 140 global banks with a goal of creating net zero emissions by 2050. Does this not sound familiar? Keep in mind, these are two separate things. But they both start with net zero. They both involve banks. And they're both shooting for net zero emissions by 2050. They're just different labels. The United Nations Environmental Program, which oversees the alliance, has thus far not commented on Goldman Sachs' departure. Reuters reported the banking giants gave no specific reason for the departure. It hinted, though, that certain regulatory demands from European Union may have been a factor. Goldman Sachs is the latest to withdraw from a climate-based coalition. JP Morgan Asset Management, Franklin Templeton, and Vanguard have recently left similar climate alliances. These climate alliances are just being reshuffled. The policies remain. They're just trying to relieve the pressure, whether it's from Ken Paxton in Texas or the European Union, any conservatives over there. Once it's like it reminds me of like Wolf of Wall Street kind of stuff. Okay, they just keep changing things up, repackaging it, and going back and doing the exact same thing. This is going to continue. And I don't know what the solution is. It's like, oh, well, I guess we'll boycott BlackRock. What? I mean, we can't do anything to BlackRock. We'll expose BlackRock. Oh, okay, well, we still can't do anything to BlackRock. What are we going to take on JP Morgan Chase? Well, but we'll get the attorneys general. We'll get the European Union. We'll get the whoever. Somebody's going to... No. None of them are going to be able to do anything. These companies reign supreme, at least in this world, which tells us that the only thing that we can do is to be smart ourselves, to do what we can to avoid working with any of these companies, and then prepare for what seems to be an inevitability that they are going to, at some point, get their way. Our tax should not be against BlackRock or JP Morgan Chase, not because they don't deserve it, but because, it's there's think of it like you've got this big aircraft carrier, right? And we're sitting there, we're thinking, well, we're going to go, if we can get enough people together, we're going to go take them out. If you were to get 1,000 rowboats, okay, 1,000 rowboats, and give everybody a BB gun in these rowboats. You can have 1 million of these rowboats. 1 million of them ramming into the aircraft carrier or trying to shoot it or trying to avoid being taken out by F-18s or whatever. No, there's nothing we could do. So our attack posture should not be against these aircraft carriers. There are times when, don't get me wrong, I mean, I don't want to make people think that I'm suggesting that we, the people, can't get together and exact change. And the vast majority of the time we can. It's not against these giants. We need to go after the policies that enable ESG to guide our nation, to guide our money. It isn't the companies, the bad guy companies, that we need to be going after. We need to make sure that whatever they do, we as Americans, we as individuals, that we are protected and insulated. And that's going to come through yes, I mean, it does come from exposing things, but it comes more from going after our own politicians, making sure that they're not controlled, making sure that they're not engaging in policies that will allow these organizations like BlackRock, like JP Morgan Chase, to guide our nation towards net zero 2050 and the destructive policies that entails. Let's spread the truth together. You can connect with me on X at JD Rucker, or you could subscribe to my Rumble channel, jdrucker.com/rumble, jdrucker.com/rumble.